Hitting record now. All right, well, hello everyone. This is the Hylo Stakeholders Circle, September 29th, 2021. And we are here today to just share everything that the core stewardship team of Hylo has been up to for the last season. It's been actually about 4 months since our last stakeholder circle. We've been very busy. There's a lot to talk about. And yeah, we're excited to share and excited to keep increasing our capacity to be transmitting what's happening and sharing more and more continuously everything that's moving and everything that's alive. And the people we invite to these calls are stakeholders, and we see stakeholders as everyone who's participating in the open source project of Hylo. And that includes all the people using Hylo, the people that are members of communities, the people especially that are stewarding communities, the people that have put their faith and resources into the development of this open source project for the benefit of everyone using it. Thank you. And the people that are sharing feedback and input and contributing to building this project. We really see it as a community project made by and for communities. And so we always want to find more and more ways of involving all of the Hylo participants in what we're doing. And yeah, just continuing to get more and more close to that vision. So lots to share. I am calling in to this call from Chochenyo Ohlone territory, which is colonially known as the East Bay of the Bay Area of California, Oakland. And some of the other core stewards are here on this call. We have Tibet and we have Aaron, and we all live in a big group house together here. We have Rose, who's new. I'll be introducing her later. We have Neha, who's also in our house. And we have Krisha, who's a very new member of the team. And then lots of amazing folks leading communities and co-creating with us. So very amazing crew here today. Thank you so much for being here. And if anyone wants to share in the chat what communities you are a part of or stewarding on Hylo, that would be really cool to see what communities we have represented on this call. Yeah, okay, so while y'all are doing that, I'm gonna pull up some slides and we're going to get into it. Great. So yes, here we are today with the stakeholder circle. And what I'm thinking for agenda is, first of all, we'd love to share development updates. Tibet's going to share everything we've added to the platform since we last talked. So there have been a number of releases, mostly performance. Well, I'll let him get into it. But yeah, lots of good stuff. Lots of juicy things have been added. Then we'll talk about partnerships and the biggest partnerships that are animating our work right now and inspiring us. There's some really cool stuff happening. I will share the updated product journey, which is how we refer to our roadmap. There's some really cool things that have come into focus as priorities. And we have team news. We have 2 new team members to officially announce today. And we also are still hiring for more. So we'll get all into that. And then especially how anyone can get involved. And then we'll have discussion. And we'd love to, hear from all of you and learn your latest and your ideas and just get into it a little bit more. So first, a quick kind of metrics update, status update. We are about on par with the last time we updated, 70 plus active communities. And that's communities that have more than 5 posts a month. And then about 2,500 monthly active members. And some of these are in terms of number of posts, this is the leaderboard of communities. So groups that are working on a lot of groups that are working on education around various aspects of regenerative culture, honestly. Creating circular economies, learning about like new paradigm economic models. That's the Next Economy MBA folks, who a few of us on this call have been through their program. And some other communities that I don't even know what they are, but they're very active on Hylo. And then, of course, Planetary Health Alliance is our biggest community. They have over 1,000 people on it, and they are coordinating people working at the intersection of public health and ecological health. And then Global Eco Village Network and Rebuild are both about creating regenerative villages. So a lot of on-topic communities that are having a lively experience using Hylo. So that's just exciting to see what's happening. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tibet, if you're done eating your toast, to share about what's going on the development side.
Sure. So yeah, let's see. Since our last update, it was definitely a slower summer on the development. We had a huge push last winter and spring with the Planetary Health Alliance, and added a ton of new stuff like the holonic architecture for nesting of groups, and then had a bunch of transitions on the core team from moving and taking a little vacation. And then since then, we've been working a lot on building up our new partnership with Open Team and growing the team, which is exciting. So hasn't been as much on the dev front, and there's a lot of kind of like bigger stuff that we're working towards and on, and I can also mention. But some of the more exciting stuff that has been released, the events functionality is slowly getting more and more useful. The events view now actually shows upcoming events in order, like as you might expect it to. I mean, you can also change it to show past events. We also show the time zones of events for folks. A lot of people around the world were complaining about that. So yeah, we have a bigger kind of scope of work to make events really shine and be much more fully featured and functional on our sort of medium-term roadmap, but they're getting there. We also kind of finished up a couple pieces that were with and for the Planetary Health Alliance, but also for everybody. Data export. You can now export your members directory. That we kind of finished up that functionality, made it more possible for larger groups, and just the fields and structure of the export much more usable. Yeah, and a bunch of just like ongoing little bug fixes, especially in the mobile apps. The mobile apps should be much more usable and are slowly catching up to the web functionality, which is great, and just got a lot of like the architecture polished so that we're ready to really build on keep the mobile apps much more in sync with web. Let's see, what else did I want to mention? Yeah, everything else is mostly just bug fixes, performance stuff. There's yeah, and I think one of the things we're very aware of is that Hylo still needs some kind of core work on just performance and making it really snappy, and what people are used to with some of the other social platforms out there these days. So that is a priority in the fall, alongside some major new things we're working on. The chat interface has been dramatically redesigned and improved, and that's going to be coming out soon. Like kind of messaging, individual and group messaging. We're also working on a pretty significant redo of some of the architecture of the authentication flow, partly for security and just best practices. But also we are adding sign-on with Hylo, which is pretty cool because you can sign on with Facebook, sign on with Google, and our partner, we can talk a little bit more about with Open Team, wants Hylo to really be a core part of the ecosystem and have it be like basically the single sign-on for a bunch of platforms in the ecosystem. So it's really exciting development that will make Hylo much more useful across the web. And also is kind of part of beginning to open up some APIs to allow more integrations. And then the other major thing that we're working on in the background that's a huge piece is adding custom group types, starting with farms for the Open Team partnership. And so this is, there'll be some functionality that is for farms, and we'll talk more about that. But really the core architectural work here and changes to Hylo will be about allowing for customization of group types for all kinds of things like courses, what kinds of different fields and somewhat different UI might we want for a company versus a family group. So that's a really big project going on in the background, and we're excited for that. So I think that's all I have to share right now. Anything else that you feel like I missed, Claire or Aaron? Great.
Maybe you could talk for a moment just about how Hylo is participating in the CTA and what may be coming there for the next year, 6 months or something.
Sure, yeah. Good transition to our partnership updates. I can mention the Collaborative Technology Alliance, which is a kind of parallel project that we're helping steward of an ecosystem of aligned social platforms that are all, working on different non-ad driven business models that are all focusing on being open, not necessarily all open source, although that's an ongoing conversation, but working to be interoperable with each other. And, some of the pieces around our auth flow and single sign-on, we're really exploring and moving towards a future where we're using standards like potentially the decentralized identifiers, DIDs, that will make it really easy for people to move data and log in with Hylo and then flow over to True.net and Connective.network and a bunch of other platforms that we're in partnership with in the Collaborative Technology Alliance. So that's a really exciting initiative that's kind of happening alongside our work on Hylo. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, T, so much. Yeah, okay, well, I'll share a little bit more about some other partnership stuff that's happening. And so Tibet began to touch on this, but the biggest partnership that's happening for us right now is with a group called Open Team, which is a very long acronym standing for Open Technology Ecosystem for Agricultural Management. It is a group of people who sit at the intersection of technology and agriculture and are dedicated to providing open source tools for farmers to transition to regenerative agriculture. It's a really interesting group. Some of our other partners are part of it, including Regen Foundation, Regen Network. They're resourced in part by USDA, so it's like related to just like really large organizations in the agriculture space in the United States. And it's really cool what is happening because just like every vertical in technology, agriculture technology is historically closed source and proprietary, and farmers are not even allowed to use or access or own their own data. So for example, when someone uses a John Deere tractor, all of the data that tractor is sucking up goes straight to John Deere and used for their own purposes. So it's sort of like when all of us use Facebook, our data is used for purposes that we are theoretically agreeing to, but other people are profiting off of it and we don't have control over what's happening. So there's this huge issue of sovereignty. And so this group, Open Team, is literally farmers building technology, farmers who are also technologists, building technology for themselves and other farmers to maximize the ecological benefit of what they are doing, and specifically to improve soil health and complete that transition to regenerative agriculture with the data to back it up and with the technology to back it up, because it's not easy to do this. Farming is not easy, and transitioning to regenerative practices is not easy. And one piece that has been missing from the Open Team ecosystem, they are incredible at assembling an ecosystem of technologies that fit together to serve all of the needs in this complex world of agriculture. But one piece that they have been really missing is a community piece, like a place where all these different pieces can come together. People from different organizations can be collaborating. Farmers who share soil types, geographies, production styles can find a place where they can be in conversation with each other. And so that is why we are partnering with them. And we have a big announcement we're going to release sometime soon. But we are partnering with them. It's been a month or two already, and this is going to go at least through the spring to discover and co-create features to serve people participating in their local food systems. So Tibet touched on a few of the things that we're working on with them, the single sign-on piece and the interoperability piece, like beginning to work on API integration, because they already have an onboarding piece for farmers and people involved in agriculture to go through. And then one of the things we're building is a way for that information to be directly pulled into Hylo for accounts and groups to be automatically generated so that it is very, very easy for farmers to participate in an online platform, because we want to make it as easy as possible, really for everyone using Hylo, but especially for people that are very, very busy from before dawn to after sundown, working on regenerating our planet. Like farmers do need community, but we need to make it really easy for them to participate. So we're doing a lot of experimentation around that, and we're in the design phase around a lot of this, and we will be doing a lot of pilots with actual farmers to test all of this out. And the goal is that the features we're working on now will be in test in like late winter and then be in production in the spring is the goal. So I'm going to jump ahead a bit just to the next slide, because this is a visual of a lot of the things that we're working on with them in the product journey. And Tibet has touched on some of these things. What I was just talking about is the survey stack integration. Tibet mentioned the single sign-on and API explorations. And another piece of that is making sure that Hylo can be embedded and is super functional as an iframe, basically, because some of the different groups within the Open Team ecosystem want to welcome people to participate in discussions that are like embedded in their websites, but the discussion is actually a Hylo group. And that's where the conversation is actually happening. And so a person can first interact with Hylo in that way, and then later on go all in and like just dive into the whole interface. So we've been working on that piece. So we call that embeddable Hylo. And then with the group types and exploring having specific types of groups with their own custom experiences, that's what we're calling on here customizable modular profiles. So this idea, there's a lot more information that groups might want to be sharing with the world, and giving group stewards the option to display that information on an about page for that group that is more outward facing. So people within the group have the explore page that we released when we were doing the PHA work, where it's like, here's the most interesting stuff happening in your community right now. So it's super useful for surfacing what you might want to look at in your own group. But when it comes to communicating between groups, it's really helpful for members of different groups to be able to see more information about that group with the consent and interest of the groups we're talking about, if those groups want to be public. So some of the things that we're adding for the farm group profile is information about what the farm is growing, where it is located, what kind of management styles it's using, what soil type it is, and then even creating tools for comparison between, if I as a farmer am looking at this page, I can compare my farm to the farm that I'm looking at in some different different metrics, such as like yield per acre, things like this, soil organic matter, soil organic carbon, equity practices. And all of these tools, a lot of them are actually generalizable to regular groups and to the future group types that we'll see. So all of these things are going to end up on a public facing page for that group. And that's really going to help people understand, what is this group all about? Do I want to be a part of it? Should our groups join forces? So all of this, it's really going to help. And another part of this that we haven't even mentioned yet, sorry to bury the lead, is we're going to make a directory page. So there hasn't been Anita's celebrating. There hasn't been a directory page yet ever, except if you go to the public map, you can see what is discoverable on the public map. But we want to make it so easy for people to discover the things that are meant for them. And so we're going to add a new page where that's more like, it's going to look a little bit like the Explore page in groups, but more text-based. So like you can search for groups that you're interested in, and it's going to surface groups that might match tags that you follow. It's going to surface groups in your area, things like this, and just like helping with that discoverability. So that, if I show up to Hylo and I didn't come in through a group and I want to find the local Weavers Guild, let's say, I can just search for that and I can see what is available. So that's going to make it super, super helpful for anyone to join Hylo and find people to collaborate with. So that's part of our designs, which the best way to see the designs right now is, I could share some when we get to the discussion section, or maybe Erin can, but also just to join Hylo, the Building Hylo community, because we've been linking to a lot of these in there, and I'll shoot that link in the chat in a minute. Okay, other things I want to talk about. Oh yeah, there's one more thing on here, which is governance. This is another really, really huge thing, and we're just beginning to explore it. I mean, we've been thinking about this for years, but it's starting to come into focus because it's something that's needed by Open Team. So, and a lot of groups on Hylo. A lot of groups have a need to have shared decision-making amongst themselves to steward shared resources or make decisions about how they move forward and participate in action together. And having these tools be natively available in Hylo has been a goal for a really long time. And so now we are in a place where we're working with a partner directly who really needs these things. And so we have a lot of ideas about it. Governance is a hugely complex topic, and mostly what I mean by that is decision-making and collective finance, like collective budgeting. So I think we're going to want a lot of feedback from all of you, from our stakeholders on this one. We're going to have a conversation with Open Team and with Regen Foundation tomorrow about collective governance and all of their needs and the kinds of decisions that their groups are going to need to make. And when we looked at it, it's actually things that like every group is going to need to make these decisions. For example, who are our leaders? Who do we trust to fulfill what roles and responsibilities? If I want to make a proposal, how do I do that? And then how do I, as a member of this group, share my interest in that proposal, share edits to that proposal, vote for it? That proposal could be about anything, right? Not just agriculture. And then say we have a shared pool of resources for my group. How do we decide how much to allocate to that project? And then how do we do accountability around whether this project has been successful or not? So those are all just very relevant to any kind of group that's trying to do something together in the world. And so those are generally the questions that we're going to try to answer with the features that we provide. There's a lot of really great governance tools already out there. Many of them are open source. Some of them are on the blockchain. And we're definitely going to evaluate what is out there and see if this is a place where we can be building bridges or incorporating other open source tools into Hylo. We don't want to reinvent the wheel here, but this is also sort of a different way for groups to be in relationship than has been really common in our recent history. So it's going to be a really interesting exploration, and you all are invited to help us. yeah, so we're definitely going to revive the governance circle and then look at these designs together and be talking about it a lot over the next several months. Yeah, and one more thing is that we also really want to explore how to represent land on Hylo and how to actually give land a voice. And so this is about helping people become in better relationship with their land. It's about land back and rematriation and making sure that we are giving credit to the indigenous communities that still steward the land that we live on. We also want, for projects that are engaged in regeneration of the land itself, we want them to be able to associate with the land that they are working with. And we want to be able to eventually show like a chain of custody around that land, like who's been responsible for stewarding this land and what improvements have they made on this land. Because a lot of different parts of the ecosystem are working on those pieces, and we really want to be able to bring that in and show that on Hylo as well. And this includes things like allowing the people of a bioregion to go on a map and like pinpoint, this is the polygon that we see as defining our bioregion, and letting people define for themselves what is the area of land that you care about, that you are active on. So there's a lot to explore there. That's another huge topic, and we'll definitely be sharing as that conversation evolves as well. So those are some awesome things in our upcoming product journey. I'm just going to go back to the partnership slide real quick and make sure that we're sharing about everything. With regard to Holochain, many of you know that we are partnering with Hylo, the makers of the Holochain decentralized and distributed internet platform. We actually have our Hylo port up and running. You can see I can't see it right now, but it's back there, our Hylo port. And we're excited to be participating in the upcoming programs to test them out. And the eventual goal, for anyone who might not be aware, is that we would like to move to a distributed architecture running on Holochain with the maturity and evolution of that system. That's one of our really big goals. So we're in conversation with them, keeping up with their updates, exploring how to steward Hylo in a good way and in relationship with that ecosystem. Some of the things we're looking at are what kind of legal structure to wrap Hylo inside of, with the possible creation of like a Hylo foundation that can be the bucket that is holding Hylo as an organization, and to kind of structure it like a lot of classical open source projects have been. So that's another piece of the governance conversation that is absolutely still ongoing, which is like, what's the right corporate structure for a project like this? And does it want to be a nonprofit? Does it want to be a co-op? These are also big conversations. And I'd say the main place we are with that is assembling our team of advisors and elders who can guide us on that. So lots more on that to come. And Tibet, I just wanted to tag you again real quick to share our ongoing relationship with Pacific Integral and the things that are priorities there, if you don't mind.
Well, Jeff is on the call and he could also speak to some of this. But we have, an ongoing kind of deeper partnership relationship with Pacific Integral, and a scope of work that we have kind of agreed to together to work on over the next year. It's more focused on kind of fundamentals of what's needed to take Hylo to the next level. And so I mentioned earlier, doing a big push to focus on performance and bug fixes and really just polish. But then also some key features like being able to add text formatting to posts is an example of one of the things that we will be prioritizing. And I mean, I could pull up our whole list, but there's things like adding actually some of the customization ability. We're talking to group profiles, also to individual profiles. So groups could add specific kind of fields or questions on profiles for the members of their group. It's a slightly different set of functionality. Anything else that you feel called to mention, Jeff?
No, it's good. Yeah, just unglamorous stuff this round, but also tangentially supporting the holochain work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, you too. I can't say how much we appreciate having a partner that cares about the fundamentals too, as well as building awesome new features. So supporting us with that and being on that journey with us, as well as the journey to integrate with holochain architecture, is much appreciated. Okay, so let's move on to something else exciting. We have some new stewards on our team, and one of them is on this call, and that is Rose. If you want to say hi, you can, but no pressure.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, it was
Good to be
okay.
with y'all. It's so sweet to see all of your enthusiasm and passion and commitment to being a stakeholder in this work.
Thanks for being here, Rose. Rose is our operations manager. We are very, very stoked to have her on the team. Every time we have a conversation with Rose, I personally feel just like lighter and like things are being handled. And it's a really good feeling. I'm going to share a little bit about her background. Rose is a connoisseur of play, depth, and trying new things. She has a background in business, communication, and summer camp. Wildly attentive to detail, dancing the line between lightness and depth, and bridging the gap of separation through juggling. And Rose is joining our team with big plans to streamline operations, clarify finances, and bring fun and games to every meeting. Thank you, which is totally happening, achieving the goal. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And we also have Tom, who I don't think is on this call. Tom is an epic human who has joined our engineering team. And before he joined the team, he was an open source contributor who contributed a lot to developing the geographic map that we've been enjoying for the last year. Mapping is one of his specialties as an engineer, and it's really, really great to have someone on the team with that particular skill set. He's also just a friend who first joined the Terran Collective community in the Bay Area, and we just got to know him as a friend at first. And yeah, he's a wonderful human. And a little bit about him, Tom is a dancer as well as a software developer, and he facilitates rites of passage for youth groups. He is an Australian/Kiwi exiled from the Southern Hemisphere for not caring about rugby, cricket, or beer, his words. He followed his passion for ultimate frisbee all the way to California. And yeah, with his rites of passage groups, he facilitates two groups seeking to reestablish the practice of rites of passage in our culture. And he and his crew just moved to a community house in Grass Valley area of California. And over there, they are tending their garden and pondering the greater questions of our relationship to land, food systems, and how we can fulfill our roles as a custodial species of Earth. So I want to welcome Tom and Rose to the team. We're so excited to have you. It's so lovely to have such amazing humans join our team, not just to fulfill like one narrow role, but to really show up with the fullness of their expression as people who have a lot to contribute to the culture of this project. So I just want to share a little bit about them with all of you. Yep. And yeah, there's more hiring information in the works, but we'll have more to announce next time. And yes, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Hiring is a journey, y'all, and the journey continues. We're we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's with our stakeholder advocate position. So we'll have an announcement on that one soon. And in the meantime, we are hiring for a few more humans to join our team. And specifically at this point, we're looking for more engineers. We would love to hire a full-time engineer. We're also open to part-time. And we're looking for people that can support us really across our stack, or in any of these specific areas. On the front end, we're using React, JavaScript, full stack, mobile engineers, very welcome. And of course, people who have experience in the Hylo ecosystem are much desired. So we're putting the call out for that. We really want to, just find the right humans. And we're going to take our time with this one and try to make sure that we're welcoming different perspectives onto our team. And again, finding those humans that really have a lot to add as humans and not just as people that can write code. So if you know anyone that is interested in doing something different and working on building technology for thriving, this is the place. Please send them right here. And maybe Tibet has already added the job post, or maybe, oh yeah, there we go. Read my mind. Thank you for anyone that wants to share that out. Emily, thank you, Jeff, for being here. See you later. So that's one of our big desires for this season, is to grow our engineering team a little bit more, because there's a lot to do. And with that, anyone can get involved. You don't need to know how to write code, although of course that is a great way to help. But there's so many ways to be participating in this project, and all that matters is your heart and your energy. And the main way that I just want to channel anyone who isn't already part of it, probably all of you are already part of this group, is the Building Hylo group on Hylo, just because that's where we're having the conversations around all of this. And as new opportunities emerge, that's the first place we go to seek support from our community. So just some examples of ways that people can participate: obviously writing code, connecting with other people writing the code on Hylo, and getting oriented on how to do that. That's a good place to go. And on that note, we recently published a contribution guide and a code of conduct on our main front-end repository on GitHub. So for people that are looking to contribute in that way, we have a clear set of instructions on how to get involved now available. So that's always helpful. But another big thing is design feedback. So Aaron is always designing things, once we start ideating these features, he's designing them, and then he shares the design links on Building Hylo, and that's the place where we start the conversation about it. And then you can go to Figma or to Miro and be commenting on the designs. We really appreciate it when our community gives input on these things. We really need your insight. So that is a really great way to help. And then of course, beyond that, just sharing ideas around new feature ideas, how to adjust the features we already have, and what you really need as a human trying to coordinate group action. Like what tools do you actually need? Because we're not just building this in a vacuum. We want to build it for all of you to achieve your goals. So that is super helpful. And then the last thing I have on here is case studies. We really want to be able to understand the stories of the people who are using Hylo and be able to share those stories and learn about their experiences. On this note, I'm going to be writing a survey and releasing a survey in the next season around people who are stewarding groups on Hylo, to learn a little bit more about how it's going, what are the easiest things to do, the easiest successes, and then what are the pain points and what do you wish was different and what would really help you out in your work. So look out for that, and please be ready to participate, because that will be really, really helpful for us to learn how we can keep doing better. Yeah, and all of it is on Building Hylo. So I'm going to drop, oh yeah, everyone's dropping the link in the chat. Awesome. Anita, I see that you messaged me about Pro Social Group. Thank you. I don't mean to be remiss in that one. We are, yeah, we're still collaborating with the Pro Social crew. They recently applied for a very large foundation grant, and we partnered with them on that grant application. And I'm not sure what the timeline is on hearing back on that, but our goal is that we will be working together very closely in partnership, bringing their communities onto Hylo, as well as working on some things to incorporate more pro-social features into Hylo. And that might include, yeah, I mean, I know one thing they really care about is learning management systems, and that's something that a lot of our partners have asked for. And we're in conversation with actually a number of groups about the topic of learning management and creating courses on Hylo. So those are some potential things. And then just around how do we help community stewards on Hylo be successful as leaders of their group and have their groups be successful in achieving their purposes. We've talked a lot about using the pro-social methodology to help do that. And we had a group that came up with a proposal around how to do that. And I think how I want to carry that forward is through the survey that I just mentioned, figuring out like, yeah, asking around what the biggest opportunities are on Hylo, trying to figure out what might be holding stewards back, if anything, and then looking at those challenges through the pro-social lens and framework. And we can apply that to discovering solutions for those things. That's where we ended with the proposal, is that we could iterate on one issue at a time on the platform and then be designing solutions that are emphasizing what we know about how to help groups flourish based on that methodology. And for anyone not familiar with pro-social, go to prosocial.world. It's a really incredible methodology based on what makes groups successful in managing a common resource. So we'll be doing those two things to carry the pro-social work forward. It's like working with them directly and then applying that process to our own stuff. Yeah, thanks for asking. And I guess that means that we're in Q&A time. I would love to open it up for questions and comments and discussion. And I'm going to take a minute to look at the chat and see what else is in here. Any questions from the crowd?
Hey, Claire, this is Kamal.
Oh, hey.
Hey, awesome work, of course.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan. My question is, you mentioned there was like a data layer that you guys have been building for the farmers, and just kind of, some pretty technical type of data. Was curious, and you mentioned those could be used for other groups. Was curious, obviously I can see that, but do you have any examples or use cases of how another group might use the types of data you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What the part that is usable by other groups are the interface components around things like, what is this group's mission, goals, practices. It's more about the UI elements that we're going to be pulling this data from the Open Team onboarding surveys. It's called Survey Stack. And there is a set of data that we're going to be pulling in. And those things are mostly specific to farms, such as, soil type, crops, things like that. Most groups are not going to have crops necessarily. But they're going to be pulled into and displayed on interface elements that might be more broadly applicable. So some of the things we're asking about are just like, just describe your group. put a video here if you guys have a storytelling video. What are the ways that you are open for collaboration and that you want other groups to reach out to you and participate with you? What projects are you participating in or hosting within your group? So these are things that right now don't show up on the public facing view of any group. So the work that we're doing to redesign the outward facing group profile, it's going to benefit every group. But the specific data structure that we're integrating with for Service Stack, that's a little bit more specific to the farms themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add a little bit more, which is I posted some of this in the chat, but just all of this work is going to enable so much more customizability for groups of all kinds. And so there will be other group types that we're developing over time with our community and with our partners, like courses were already mentioned. That'll be a new group type that has different types of data and some different UI elements. But also, kind of like what Claire was saying, every group will benefit from the work to make groups customizable. So for example, you'll be able to change the language used to describe the different roles in a group and change the views that are on the side and the navigation for the group, like map and events and projects. You'll be able to reorder them and potentially change the names of them or decide which ones you want to hide and show in your group. So yeah, it's just in general, we'll be adding a lot more customizability for all group types.
Yeah, I just wanted to tag on that and say that the customizability is going to make it infinitely more useful for our network. Like we've been peripherally on Hylo for a while and I'm part of the PNW Circular Economy Hub, but overall there's still like just so many missing functionalities that feel core to what we want to do. And then just also on the same note, I want to say I'm so excited about that survey that you mentioned, Claire, to reflect back some of the things that like do feel really primary to hopefully play into the prioritization of rollouts. Yeah, so as soon as that comes out, I'm really excited to circulate that with my community.
Amazing. Great. That's really good to know. Great to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, excited to learn what things are highest priority to you.
Yeah, I'll definitely share.
Do you have any comments right now that you'd like to share?
Yeah, the collective decision-making around resource use specifically, because I think that would apply both to people in doing rural farm activities, and then we have like an urban garden, and getting the like crop-specific functions that you were just talking about going, and then giving really rapid feedback on how to apply that to urban contexts would be super useful for us. And any visualization tools that help you to see the network of community members. Sorry, this is like totally off book, but
Great.
Visualization, like even if it's just a plugin to see how many people there are and where they are relating to what they do in the network, etc. Like a graph view of people or a graph view of topics so that not everything is just so linear.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we have Amma in the chat saying, yes, visualization. Yeah, thank you. That's really great to be thinking about. We definitely want Hylo to evolve a little bit in that direction of being a lot more of a visual tool as well as kind of a text-based tool. The visualizations definitely make it more accessible. Not everyone is able to really like read a lot or understand a lot of like technical information. And as Hylo branches out to serving different communities and not just communities in North America, the visual element is really important to us. I love the idea of a graph view of community members and topics and groups that are related to each other. We started to do just a little bit of that visualization on the groups tab where you can see how your group is connected to other groups, but there's so much more to do there. So Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's really, really interesting. We definitely do want to be incorporating more video, and audio chat is something that we've been talking about as well. That's, yeah, see some fingers for that one. That's obviously like a huge trend in platforms right now. And I think we really appreciate that because people like to be in communication in different ways. And it's not just about commenting on a post. Sometimes being able to jump into an audio room is really great. And sometimes, that's not for everyone. And then the video piece is really special too. One other thing to mention on that is there is a video storytelling platform that's part of Open Team called Look Into, and they specialize in putting together kind of like Instagram story type content for farmers. And they have like an interface for a farmer to upload like photos and video from their farm and put it together in a little story, like literally just like an Instagram story. But it can be anywhere. And so we're exploring with them, what does it look like to embed that on a group profile page? So any group could create their little reel using this tool and then embed it on their page. And that's really exciting to us because, yeah, like that kind of content really works for some people. And we want to make sure that we're just able to support whatever content is, whatever style of content really works for each community. It's going to be different for each community. Yeah. Other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned about wanting us to do case studies. Do you have a framework already set up for the case studies?
I don't. And if that's something that you have ideas about, I would happily hear them.
Has anyone done any yet?
No. Not in this this incarnation of Hylo. It's possible that in Hylo's previous incarnation there were, but I'm not aware of.
Yeah, thinking it's a very broad topic. I'm interested, but I would need more narrow parameters, like to know what it is that you're looking for, specifically.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is like the destination or end goal would be to be able to tell some stories of groups that feel like they're successfully using Hylo in whatever way, and sharing specific wins. For example, with Planetary Health Alliance, as soon as so there's like a central organizing institution that runs this huge global network, and it's really hard to be the central institution in a network like that. And all of their communications had basically been like one-to-many communications. And then they have to handle all of those conversations that result. But on a platform like Hylo, instead of sending a newsletter, they can just be posting their updates and people can be engaging with them, sharing information with each other, and it becomes a many-to-many conversation. And they've given us feedback like, oh, this has just saved us a ton of time. Like we are able to multiply ourselves. Information like that is really helpful because it's like, okay, this is the specific way it has helped someone. But ideally,
what's the name of that group again?
Oh, that's the Planetary Health Alliance. And it speaks to the broader question around metrics, which is something that we have a really big inquiry around how to do metrics right in a world where the ideal outcome is regenerative, thriving bioregions and culture rather than maximizing shareholder profit. So coming up with those metrics is also an activity that I want to invite everyone here into. When we think about it, it's like, how many new relationships have been formed in this group? How many relationships have deepened, or where has trust deepened? What new collaborations have started because this group is on Hylo? What collaborations or projects have been completed and achieved success in some capacity? And then ultimately, what we'd really like to see, especially when it comes to the farming communities, is like are we building soil? Is there a more resilient local food system that's growing as a result of these people being in a relationship? Is there more carbon in the soil? Literally, like that's like one of the most like specific quantitative and important measurements I can come up with is like, are we actually sequestering carbon here? Like this is very important. So you can see it's not really like the standard metrics for a social network, right? And another even more abstract one that we often talk about is our desire to obsolete ourselves. We want communities to use Hylo and then for Hylo to help so much with group cohesion and coordination that eventually like the relationships are built and the trust is there and people are perhaps collectively working on the ground if it's a group that's in geographic proximity and then like not even needing an online platform to bring them together. You know, like, can we be so effective that this platform becomes not even needed and that the amount of time spent looking at this platform is actually minimized because the collaboration is actually happening? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've been with you on that journey of like, planned obsolescence in a good way.
Totally.
And I wonder, like, we all wonder about the future of the globalization of our planet. But I think like where I'm at right now is not planning Hylo into obsolescence, but with you on, making local and regional and bioregional communication be able to happen, not as much online.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing your vision.
Yeah. Just writing down your email address. Yeah, I would love to keep that conversation going with you. Yeah, and I know we're getting to the top of our hour. So are there any more quick thoughts, comments, questions from anyone here?
Just that I posted in the chat earlier, but Living Systems Network, which I'm part of up in Vancouver, we're hosting our first virtual holochain conversation tonight for a while. And like, I really look forward to continuing to see this evolution of the relationship with Hylo and Holo. And if anyone wanted to come tonight who's in Pacific time, it's at 5:30. I linked it in the chat. It would just be really great to have someone who knows Hylo well to be there to speak to what you're doing.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. We'll check it out. Rad. Thank you everyone so much for being here. This has been really great. It's lovely to see all of your faces. And yeah, I've been recording this, so I'll post the recording probably on YouTube and I'll share it around. I know Edward was asking for it. Yeah, thank you all so much. And we'll be sharing as we make progress on all of these things and look forward to seeing you next time. So yeah, take care all. Have a lovely day. Blessings.
Bye.